Hey, 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 happy Tuesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by thegaminggang.com, which I happen to be the Grand Poobah. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Tuesday, April 26th, 2022. This is live stream 779. This is your first time joining me, let me point out, super casual around here. We're just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then taking a look at a tabletop game release. Tonight, we are going to dive into Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, The Horned Rat, from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. This is Chapter 4 in the Enemy Within campaign. And of course, this is the director's cut. So this is arriving finally in print. We're going to dive on in and take a peek a little bit later on. So I do want to mention, if this is your first time popping in to check out the stream, keep in mind that we start off by taking a look at the tabletop gaming news. So it'll be about 30 minutes before we dive into the Horned Rat. If you are watching this stream 30 minutes or more after it's finished, there will be timestamps. So you can skip ahead if you want to take a pass on the tabletop gaming news of the day. Although there's some cool stuff we're going to talk about tonight. So I'd say stick around. Of course, if you're watching live, put your feet up, relax. We'll get to the Horned Rat in just a little bit. Of course, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't, and if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my first look at Pathfinder Book of the Dead. Check it out, especially if you are a Pathfinder 2nd edition DM, or I guess we'll say GM, right? Because you're not a dungeon master if you're running Pathfinder, even though it is essentially Dungeons & Dragons 3.85 with 2nd edition. Cool stuff. Very cool stuff. I have actually started to read it, so I will have a review in the relatively near future. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live stream, so that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for 48 hours before you can take part in chat. Yet another way that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But I do my best to pay attention to chat. So if you want to say howdy, maybe get a question or a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. So far, first out the gate tonight was the Motor City Madman. That's right, the Madman is with us. He happens to be one of our chat moderators as well. So behave. Omenal's with us. Clint Gibson's here. Viper Dave is popping in early in the show. Good to see VP. Testy Trekkie is with us again. Coco B, Jesus Nava, and Flaming Heron's here. our other chat moderator over in Australia. I know there's a terrible Aussie, kind of accent I put on there. Kathy Evans is with us, and Doug Roberts is in chat. So we have a pretty rockin' chat already. So let's dive on into the news, because arriving later this spring is Michael Coe's Dungeon Heroes. Here's the skinny from Gamelyn Games. Welcome to the dungeon. We got fun and games. Oh, no, right. No, those aren't the right lyrics. Welcome to the dungeon. 2 players go head-to-head, controlling opposing sides in a game of deduction and deceit. 1 player controls a party of 4 heroes, adventuring into a dungeon for treasure. The other is the Dungeon Lord, who reigns over the dungeon's traps, treasures, and monsters. The heroes' party consists of a warrior, a cleric, a rogue, and a wizard who must work together, using each of their special abilities to overcome the puzzles presented by the scheming Dungeon Lord. Dungeon Heroes is a tile placement roguelike dungeon crawl. 1 player controls an adventuring party consisting of 4 heroes, and the other is the Dungeon Lord. He creates the dungeon and controls the monsters within. The goal of the Dungeon Lord is to construct a devious dungeon layout by placing tiles turn by turn. When the Dungeon Lord runs out of tiles, the monsters enrage and hunt down the heroes. The heroes must unravel the Dungeon Lord's scheme by disarming traps, killing monsters early, and using powerful magic to reveal hidden areas. Their goal is to locate 3 treasures to win the game. The Dungeon Lord, quite naturally, wants to eradicate the heroes. Dungeon Heroes is for 1 or 2 players, ages 14 and up. Plays in about 15 to 30 minutes. Will carry an MSRP of $30 when it arrives in stores later this spring. No. So I have to point out, I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe this was a game design. It was not originally released by Gamelyn Games. I'm not positive if it was Crash Games that had released this, but I think this was originally released before Gamelyn Games was around. Now, I could be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong. But off the top of my head, I seem to recall Dungeon Heroes was like first or second game design by Michael Coe. So, in fact, I think I'm going way back. There was a game convention that tried to get off the ground in Phoenix, Arizona, when I lived out there, and it was called Volcon. It was only 1 year, and it was really bizarre because 4 out of the 5 game stores that were in the valley were like actively working against this convention. It was the weirdest thing. And that was the first time I actually met Michael Coe and interviewed him and his partner with Crash Games. And I remember him mentioning this game. So I'm pretty sure that this is from a ways back. This is probably, I think it originally came out maybe 11 years ago. So it's cool to see it getting the Gamelyn game kind of treatment here. All righty. So Flaming Aaron says he'll give me a pass on the Aussie accent because he does an awful American one. Although I find it very unusual how well European actors and actresses can pull off American accents for the most part. Far better than most American actors and actresses. So the Madman says, yes, they're going to have to check out Dungeon Heroes because he really enjoys Gamelyn Games releases. Tessie Trekkie says, best thing about the Aussie accent is how attractive it is. Real quick side note story, kind of going off on a tangent. I worked with a young lady years and years ago. I was in my mid-20s. And we were friends, and we used to go and have a few cocktails after work. And we were at a bar one time, and she suddenly got it into her head that she was going to pretend she was from Australia. And she put on this Australian accent, And all night long, it drove me nuts because she was pretending that she was from Australia and just visiting, and it was just crazy. Arriving this June from KOSMOS is Exit the Game, The Return to the Abandoned Cabin. Here's the skinny. Exit the Game, The Return to the Abandoned Cabin is a sequel to Exit the Game, The Abandoned Cabin, with lots of new puzzles and tools. One ordinary morning, a police detective rings your doorbell. He asks you to come with him to a cabin in the woods. You instantly know it's the same cabin in which the sinister riddle master Dr. Arthur Funbick locked you up a few years ago. So why would you go back? Be like, hey, come with us. We're going to take you back to where you were kidnapped and tortured and everything. Come on. Come with us. Be like, no. Apparently, the doctor has just escaped from prison. Now you're headed back to the infamous cabin where it all began to help bring Funbick down. The adventure begins again. This is a celebration of 5 years since the initial Exit game, The Abandoned Cabin. Really? It's only been 5 years? That's pretty wild. Amazing. I thought it was longer than that because there are a lot of Exit games out there, and they've actually started to release kind of like box sets, which are like bundles of Exit games. So Exit games are kind of cool, or I should say Exit the Game, as opposed to, don't think I'm talking about just all escape room games, because a lot of them aren't very good. But Exit the Games tend to be pretty cool. This one's going to have a difficulty level of 3 out of 5, which is probably right in my wheelhouse, because I'm about as bright as a small appliance bulb as far as these things go. Exit the Game is a series of escape room games for the home. Players must solve riddles and puzzles and crack codes to escape from an imaginary room or environment. It does have a one-time use, so each game can only be played once, because you're going to end up marking up, folding, and tearing the game materials to crack the codes. Exit the Game, The Return to the Abandoned Cabin is for 1 to 4 players, ages 12 and up. Plays in around 90 minutes. I think it's way more than that. I remember doing a live stream. In fact, I think it took us 3 live streams to solve one of the Exit games. I forget which one it was. Enchanted Forest? No. Because we were in a castle or something. But yeah, it was, I don't know. I think 90 minutes is a lot shorter than it takes. It does carry an MSRP of $17.95. I know some people are like, oh, what? $18 for a game we're only going to play once? Think about going to the movies. Go to the movies, spend more than $20 if you got like a family of 2. If you're going, it's not just you going to the show. So I gotta be honest, I think the Exit games are actually a decent value for the gameplay that you get. So Amias G is joined us as well. Welcome aboard. I believe this might be a first-time visit for AG. I'm not positive, but I believe so. So welcome aboard. And let's see what we got here. Oh, so they're talking about some Savage Worlds info, because the Madman happens to be kind of our Savage Worlds expert, which I guess I should try to, look into having the Madman's daughter review some Savage Worlds stuff, huh? Since, it probably runs in the family. So I don't know. So there was some discussion about Madman being part of the Kickstarter for the Savage Worlds Fantasy supplements. Speaking of Kickstarter, currently up for crowdfunding for Son of Oak Games Studio is Tokyo Otherscape. And here's a bit of the deets about the project. Otherscape is a new cyberpunk role-playing game that combines supernatural powers inspired by mythology and legend. It's designed by Amit Moshe and Son of Oak Game Studio, the award-winning team that created City of Mist, with art by manga artist Isago Fukuda and other gifted artists. This campaign will fund the creation of the game's core book, Metro Otherscape, and the first urban setting book, Tokyo Otherscape, focusing on the megacities of Japan and Japanese spirits and specters known as yokai, kami, and oni, and more. The Tokyo Otherscape box set will contain both books, as well as 5 pre-generated character folios. If the funding goal is exceeded, which it has been, they're going to continue to unlock more content, as well as add dice, an MC screen, because your game master is called an MC, as with the City of Mist role-playing game. And cards will also be added to the box set. I would have shared a real short video, less than a minute, which would have given you a little more of a look at some of the graphics. But unfortunately, the music sets off a copyright flag. So unfortunately, I'm not able to share that video with you today. But Tokyo Otherscape is past the 600% funding mark, and you can reserve a copy of the box set for a $99 pledge. Both of those core books, I do believe, are hardcover. You can get the core book and the setting book for a $69 pledge, or you can get the PDFs of those 2 books for a $29 pledge through May 5th. Expected delivery for digital products is this November, and the physical releases should hit next February. Yes. I have to say, City of Mist, I only got to take a peek at the 2 core books for City of Mist. And very, very interesting, very unique system. It reminds me a little of Powered by the Apocalypse, but it is not a Powered by the Apocalypse game. It reminds me a little bit of the Cypher system, but it is certainly not a Cypher system game. So it's very unique. It really is. And in the role-playing game sphere, that's saying a lot when a game is truly unique. And I will say, City of Mist definitely is. This sounds like it could be kind of interesting. Almost has kind of maybe a Shadowrun vibe to it, because there is magic, supernatural elements, and cyberpunk. So we shall see. And of course, I'm sure Son of Oak will produce much better quality than, say, I don't know, the folks who do Shadowrun. So I know they're always getting reamed constantly. They did a starter set for Shadowrun 6th edition. It was just a mess. But that's Catalyst Game Labs for you. Moving right along, there is a System List OSR role-playing game adventure, which is available in print and PDF from Throne of Salt. Here's what I know about unicorn meat. Deep in the monster-haunted backwoods, Sunny Smiles Unicorn Farms lies in ruin. The overseers vanished months ago. Gangs of feral children lurk in the shadows of a vast, blood-stained factory. Knife season has come. Food is running out. Some rough beast slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. Unicorn Meat is a Southern Gothic horror adventure inspired by Lisa the Painful, True Detective, and Lord of the Flies, set in the decaying ruins of the last unicorn farm in the world. Play as Carver girls attempting to escape, or as adults unraveling the horror at the center of the Rochefoucauld Company's great sin. Compatible with any number of old school and old school adjacent RPGs, this adventure features a system agnostic adventure. Explore the farm, the factory, the swamp, and the caves beneath. Spoilers! There's a Carver Girl character class, new items and spells, spiritual combat, and mutation mechanics. Support for one-shot and campaign-length games. There are colorful NPCs and factions. Throw yourself right into the front of the brewing gang war. It's got streamlined card-based wilderness exploration. Muck around in the swamp without making a mess. And then there's also the meat economy. Food is money. Is that big knife worth going hungry for? Is a full meal worth the risk of a hunt? The 101-page softcover of Unicorn Meat is available for $25 over at Exalted Funeral, or you can grab the PDF over at DriveThruRPG for $12. So yesterday we were talking about the increase in games that have like a Appalachian southern mountainous region kind of vibe to them, kind of a folk horror vibe. I present you Unicorn Meat. So this sounds actually pretty wild. It really does. It sounds very, very interesting. So it might be worth checking out. Doug Roberts says, what? Unicorn Meat? There is actually, I think it's on Amazon. There is a company that sells cans of unicorn meat, and it looks like it's like a can of Spam with different artwork. So I don't know if there's actually anything in it. Now, I have seen some stuff where supposedly inside the can, it's like a plush unicorn that's been chopped up. I don't know. But yes, I get a kick out of the can says unicorn meat on it. Overall says the Hawthorne Dark Woods feel. Yes. Fleming says unicorn meat. The other white meat? Ah, yes. Coco B enjoys unicorn on the cob. Drum roll, please. All right, on to the last news piece. The 12th adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics Lankhmar has arrived in PDF. Here's the latest from Goodman Games. This is a level 2 DCC adventure set in, you guessed it, Lankhmar. And it is the Mercy of the Day of the Eel. A gang of would-be street legends has offended the master of the Lankhmar Thieves Guild, and the verdict is death. However, the crime lord offers a grant reprieve if the PCs agree to undertake a tricky job on his behalf, a heist where the stolen item must ultimately be returned to the mark without detection. Of course, things are rarely as straightforward as they seem in the city of 7,000,000 smokes, and this seemingly simple task might lead to an adventure beyond all imagining. What will become of our heroes if they accept mercy on the Day of the Eel? Of course, this adventure is officially licensed from the estate of Fritz Leiber. This 16-page adventure is available in PDF over at DriveThruRPG for $6.99. Ka-ching! You know, if I remember correctly, didn't Goodman Games kickstart a boxed Lankhmar set? I could have swore, and it was relatively recently. I'm tempted to actually pick that up to review it so that I can review other Lankhmar adventures, because I am a huge fan of Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. So, and I have read those stories and listened to those audiobooks multiple times over the years. So I consider myself to be pretty well versed in the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser genre of stories. So I would like to check this out. Plus, I like Dungeon Crawl Classics too. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Of course, once again, this adventure is available in PDF over at DriveThruRPG. Speaking of DriveThruRPG, don't forget The Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, DriveThruRPG, please stop by thegaminggang.com first, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, this week is affiliate week. So One Bookshelf is doubling the commission that the affiliates receive. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, if you like what we do, you can always buy me a cup of coffee or some soda by visiting paypal.me/thegaminggang and making a small donation. And a big thank you to everyone out there who does use the banner ad links and those who, from time to time, make a small donation through PayPal. It is much appreciated. All right, so that's it for the news tonight. Fleming Heron says, Dungeon Crawl Classics is a great system. That is one I can honestly say I want to play more of. It is, what I find weird is that there are a lot of people out there like, oh, Dungeon Crawl Classics, that's not old school Renaissance. It's pretty adjacent to OSR in my book. Yes, I get it. Some people look at it like OSR is essentially only original brown box Dungeons and Dragons up to first edition advanced D&D. And that's it. Nothing else can possibly, and it's got to be the same mechanics. You're allowed some tweaks. You're allowed to clean things up, but it's all got to be kind of the same mechanics. And to me, I think the old school Renaissance incorporates a lot more than just a period of 4 or 5 years in the hobby. I really do. Omanel points out they think it's close enough to OSR too. Yeah, I wouldn't say it is OSR, but it's damn close to it. So I'm not going to give anybody a hard time if they're like, oh yeah, that's old school Renaissance, like some people do. I've heard people bring that up as an old school Renaissance game, and all of a sudden people are like, oh, absolutely not. Nobody can define what OSR is. Come on. Everybody's got a different opinion of what the old school Renaissance or old school revival happens to be. All righty. So tonight, I'm going to be diving into Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, The Horned Rat, in just a few moments. But first, it's time for a brief intermission.
Old Virginia, 300 years ago, Captain John Smith and Pocahontas shot their meat and aged it slow. They smoked it and they spiced it too for flavor at its best. Genuine Smithville barbecue surpasses all the rest.
Yes, folks, it's 300 years of tradition and taste you savor when you ask for a Smithfield barbecue James River brand at our refreshment center. In each flavorful morsel of meat, you can smell the hickory, oak, and applewood and taste the rare herbs and spices required for its cure. Here is truly a fresh new taste from an ancient recipe.
Go for deep down flavor of the Smithfield country kind. Just step right up to your neighbor, find your taste, and lose your mind. Yeah!
Hello. You know, when you fix an Italian food, everything has got to be just perfect. Especially when you're making a pizza. I'm going to show you. Looks good? You betcha my life. And it's delicious. That's the pizza you get at the theater. So hurry up. Get yourself some.
You'll like our pizza pies, made from a famous Italian recipe. They're waiting for you right now at the concession stand. Enjoy tempting food at its best.
And now, on with the show.
Ah, is that a pizza good? You betcha me alive. I was like, what? And we won't even talk about the problems with the Smithfield barbecue ad from the spokesperson on the can who makes Uncle Ben look like Malcolm X to the kid like jumping on that barbecue sandwich like a feral dog. It's like, what the? Tomorrow I'm going to share a drive-in concession ad. Actually, to be honest, I think I get the feeling it was more of a theater. Although I guess could call a drive-in a theater. They do all the time. Talking about a brick and mortar theater. I think it was more of a theater ad. And wow, the problems that has. We'll be counting them up on more than two hands. But I'll share that for tomorrow's show. So the Madman says, bring on the Detroit-style pizza. Isn't Detroit-style pizza, doesn't it tend to be square? Like Jets Pizza? When I lived in Mishawaka, Indiana, I had Jets a couple of times. And it was pretty decent, but the reality was it wasn't all that much different than the deep dish square Little Caesars pizza for like $18 less. So that's what I thought. So the Madman says, yes, it is square. Yeah, and it's kind of like the crust on the edges tends to be kind of caramelized almost. Yeah, pretty good. I am a Chicago pizza fan. Of course, I live in the suburbs outside Chicago. And the funny thing is, people talk about like Chicago-style pizza. Most Chicagoans aren't really into that kind of pizza. We're more into the thin crust pizza. We really like thin crust a lot. Madman says, Buddy's is the original and much better than Jets. Tell you what pizza place I was shocked to find was a franchise, which I believe it started in Illinois, was Barnaby's. I don't know if anybody out there has heard of Barnaby's, but we were going to Barnaby's when I was a little kid because it was right down the street from where my dad worked. And very unique thin crust pizza. It's got almost a little bit of a butter taste to the crust. Is that a good? You betcha your life. Else says thin crust is New York style. Actually, New York style is thin crust that you can fold. Chicago thin crust, you don't fold those. It is crisp. So Russell Higgins has joined us just in time for some discussion of pizza. Yeah, I could go for some pizza. Haven't had, well, I don't want to say that. I was going to say, it's been a long time since I had good pizza. That's probably been about 3 weeks. So Clint Gibson points out the owner of Little Caesars owns the Tigers. Yep, knew that. And the Red Wings. Knew that. I can't remember their name. I forget. Anyway, so some discussion about, hey, I hope you guys weren't hungry. Omanel says that their mother hated real Italian pizza when she went to Venice. Yeah, because if I remember right, I don't think the pizza that Italians make have tomato sauce. I think it's like olive oil. I could be wrong. I don't know. No clue. I make a halfway decent pizza myself with green pepper. I always like green pepper. It is one of my favorites if I'm doing veggies on a pizza. All right, so enough of the pizza talk, because tonight I'm going to take a first look and page through Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, The Enemy Within Part 4, The Horned Rat, from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. This 160-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $39.99. It is making its way into stores as I speak. You can grab the PDF right now. In fact, it's been out for a while in PDF over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. Let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the Horned Rat. Clint Gibson, there's all this talk about pizza. And Clint Gibson says, see what intermission does? Yeah, when there's pizza in it. There's a pizza ad at the intermission. Alrighty, so do want to point out the fine folks over at Cubicle 7 Entertainment were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share my thoughts about this with you or to provide this coverage to you. Take a look at the back. Doug Roberts is asking if it would be a unicorn rat. Yes, the horned rat is a unicorned rat. And you know what? If you can find that on a pizza, is that a good? You bet your life. All right, so let's take a look at the back here. My friends in change, we have sown glorious chaos, but to bring the time of changes, we must act as one under a champion in shadows. The Horned Rat is the 4th volume of the revised and updated director's cut of The Enemy Within, one of the most highly regarded role-playing campaigns ever written. Building on the dramatic events at the end of Power Behind the Throne, recruiting your brave heroes into the service of the city of Middenheim for more drama and intrigue. In the penultimate volume of the 5-part series of grim and perilous Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay adventures, the tables are turned as enemies that have pursued the characters since the beginning of the epic campaign are forced to defend themselves. The time is right to uncover their schemes and break apart their organization. The characters cannot afford to relax their guard and celebrate their victories as a new threat emerges from beneath their feet. 245 Trioxin has joined us in chat. Welcome aboard. So let's dive on in. A few things I do want to point out. I'm going to stay picture in picture up here. I mean, if you watch the stream all the time, you know that's the case. But in case, it's their first time visiting, I'll be up here. And that means I'll be cutting off a little portion of the upper left of the book as we take a peek through. Also, I'm not going to look at each and every page here, but I do want to give you a good feel for what this adventure consists of. So if you are a player and you're hoping your game master is going to run the Horned Rat, you might want to tune out because you're going to see some stuff here. I'm going to stay away from spoilers, even though I have read this. I am going to stay away from spoilers, but we're probably going to land on a few things that'll be like, oh, hey. So you have been warned. So as I mentioned, the PDF for this has been out for quite some time. And I do believe that Cubicle 7 Entertainment had changed printers. And that threw kind of a wrench into the works, or as they like to say, a spanner into the works, and slowed things down. So this is finally out. So this is the 4th part in the 5-part Enemy Within campaign. And this has just been a complete and utter blast to read through. I can only imagine how much fun it would be to run or take part in as a player. So a few things, if you are not overly familiar with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, it doesn't take itself as seriously as some other role-playing games. there is some humor to it. The player characters are not these all-powerful demigods. They're just regular folk. And of course, they improve over the adventures and things like that. But even at this point in time, the player characters are still just essentially nobodies. You know, I mean, they're known to some people now because of all the things that they've done for the Empire. But for the most part, it's like, who the hell are you? So as you can see, one of the big bads in this adventure are the Skaven. So we get some Skaven info right up front. If you have not been following what's going on in Enemy Within, once again, as I mentioned, this doesn't take itself too seriously. So in the beginning, there you go. Omenel's pointing out the rat catcher. The rat catcher is actually a pretty good starting character too, because he's got that mean little dog that helps. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think in the rule book it says mean little terrier, something like that. It's like part of its the character's starting equipment. So anyway, to start off the adventure, the group, the party, encounters this dead body. Some dead, folks from a battle. They run across and they find one of them looks exactly like one of the player characters. And it turns out that the deceased is a mover and shaker in this chaos cult who the cult thinks was going to get an inheritance with all this money that was going to be donated to the cult. And then, of course, he never shows up with the money. And the inheritance is all a scam just to try to get him to come out of the woodwork so that this mercenary can capture him. So, of course, what happens? Player character becomes, the focus of all of that attention. It's because they all think he or she is the big cultist. So pretty interesting stuff. So what's going to happen here is the player characters are going to end up in the service of the city of Middenheim, and they are going to encounter the Horned Rat. So what's going on in the background of Enemy Within is there is this movement, these cultists who are looking to overthrow the Empire and sow chaos within the Empire. And the player characters have been kind of on the fringe of those goings on until the previous chapter. And they kind of start learning more and more about this vast conspiracy to bring down the Emperor. So just to kind of give you a little bit of background, Perkins Dearborn has popped in to chat with us. I think I'm up to date. I think I've said hello to everybody. Oh, Bane122 is in chat with us as well. Thanks for swinging in to hang out. And Perkins points out the art and quality of the GW books is great. Actually, these are not Games Workshop. These are Cubicle 7 Entertainment. So, of course, licensed from Games Workshop. And I got to point out the credits that I saw for the writing is like a lot of folks. So in previous volumes, it's pretty much been Graham Davis and maybe 2 or 3 names, but there are a lot of people credited with writing credits and art credits as well in this adventure itself. I am going to take a first look at the companion for the Horned Rat, and that will be a standalone video. I'm not going to do that on the stream. So that'll probably be up this weekend. So just kind of giving you a little bit of background here on the adventure. So what's going to happen here is, so the player characters are brought in to actually work for the city of Middenheim. And then they find out that honeycombed underneath cities throughout the empire are the Skaven, who most people poo-poo. Oh, that's a figment of your imagination. There aren't any rat men. What are you talking about? But there is, and they are big movers and shakers in this adventure. Sometimes in the past, the Skaven are kind of utilized, I don't want to say like as comic relief, but they aren't taken as seriously in some Warhammer adventures years ago. I'm not talking about the Cubicle 7 stuff. And they kind of get the same treatment that sometimes people like who play Pathfinder look at goblins, where goblins are, crazy and weird, but they're not really that big a threat. That is not the case in this adventure. That is not the case at all with this adventure. This chapter here really ups the stakes for the player characters. This is a far more serious adventure than some of them in the past. Now, don't get me wrong. There are still some set pieces that are pretty funny that I kind of got a chuckle out of. But the stakes have really risen for the players as they unravel all of these different threads of what's going on below the surface of the Empire. In fact, I'm not sure when the final chapter is going to come out in hardcover. It should be soon, I would think. Probably the next couple of months. And I got to be honest, because I've read it, I was really surprised with the end, with how this campaign ends. But then again, I thought to myself, you know what? That is right in league with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Because the thing is, years ago, I originally picked up first edition WFRP. I remember way back in the day picking it up. And I used to pick up a lot of Games Workshop stuff. Never ran it. There's another one up. We've talked about this before. It's like, I wish I had all the stuff that I had throughout all those years. And I would pick up stuff constantly just to read through, even though the only role-playing game I ran was Call of Cthulhu. And it's not like I was going to be picking up, like ideas for Call of Cthulhu necessarily through Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. But still, I would pick up a lot of stuff all the time. And I got to be honest, I had not read any of the Enemy Within campaign ever until this director's cut from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. So as you can see, you've got all the various different NPCs. Pretty cool artwork throughout. The character artwork is usually black and white. It's just kind of a thing with WFRP and Cubicle 7 Entertainment. A vast majority of the time, your character artwork, especially when you're looking at the various different like stat blocks, the artwork is all black and white. So this adventure itself, and I'll go into a lot more detail in the review, has a bit more like dungeon delving in it than we've seen in previous adventures. And of course, part of that is also because you've got the Undercity that the player characters are in as well. Flaming Heron says they picked up their original Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay First Edition from a local bookstore on a whim, knowing nothing about it. I actually bought mine from a place that was in Chicago known as the Emperor's Headquarters, which mainly focused on historical miniatures games and war games, but they did have a small section of role-playing game stuff, which was usually occupied by Vampire the Masquerade stuff, because we talked about that in the past, how Vampire the Masquerade and other World of Darkness stuff tended to like push other stuff off the shelf. But that's where I picked that up, because it was also a place that I used to go and pick up White Dwarf magazine, because I used to check that out all the time. And it was kind of a local game store. In fact, they were the publishers of, I think it's Empire 5, which was a Napoleonics rule set, which was boring as hell. But Omenal says they got their first edition at Barnes & Noble in the late 80s. Yes, so there is just a look at the Horned Rat. Of course, I'm going to have a review of this in the very near future, because I've already read this. I've just been waiting for the physical edition to arrive. Once again, I also have a video of the Horned Rat Companion. That'll be this weekend as well. All right. So once again, this hardcover is available for $39.99. It is making its way into stores. The PDF has been out for a while, and you can grab that over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. So Omenal also points out they got some other WFRP stuff in an Orlando game store in the early 90s. See, in the Chicago area, when I was in high school, because we got a little bit of time. It's early. We haven't even hit the hour mark. There weren't a lot of game stores. To be honest, I don't think there's a lot of game stores in Chicago now. I think there's maybe 4, 5. I don't know, because honestly, when I go into the city, I'm not anywhere near any of the game stores. I'm in a specific spot downtown, and that's it. I zip in, zip out. But when I was in high school, we had a chain of game stores that was called Gamers Paradise, that was in some of the malls. And they carried, well, at the beginning, they carried just tabletop games. Then they started carrying like Intellivision, ColecoVision, various. They would carry some PC games, and then they got into like oddball, like chess sets, and like those really chintzy, like statues of wizards and stuff like that. So the tabletop gaming section started to kind of shrink. Then they started carrying a bunch of miniatures, and it was a bunch of Games Workshop stuff. So the tabletop, like the board games and RPGs, shrank a little bit more. But that was where I used to purchase a lot of my Warhammer Epic, my Warhammer 40K Epic 6mm stuff, because we played a lot of that. Then there was also a game store that I think I knew about it for about 3 years before it closed. So I learned about it my freshman year, and I think by junior year, the store had closed, and it was called Sutler's Wagon, and it was just board games, just RPGs. And that was where I got my first copy of Fletcher Pratt's Naval War Game. That's where I picked up Traveler for the first time. It's where I picked up Call of Cthulhu and bought that. So, and then of course, my role-playing life changed after Call of Cthulhu came out. I became the forever CFC GM, keeper, what have you. Daniel Silverthorne has joined us in chat. Point out they miss Epic. For some reason, I think Epic is back. At least the Titans are back. I thought they had just released something. I don't really cover Games Workshop stuff simply because there's so many places out there that do. They don't need, my coverage. But I could have swore I thought they had like Adeptus Titanicus or something like that again. So I don't know. Games Workshop loves to go through these, these cycles. It's like, oh, it's been 3 years. We need a new edition of Warhammer 40K. It's been 5 years. I guess we got to create a brand new Warhammer Fantasy game. Completely piss everybody off. That's okay. So we had the Sutler's Wagon, and then we had Games Workshop, or not Games Workshop, Gamer's Paradise, and then we had Emperor's Headquarters, which actually opened when I was about 20. And that was around for a few years. And all of these places are long, long gone. In fact, Sutler's Wagon was the first one to disappear. It was really strange because I think it had been like 2-3 weeks since we had gone in, because all my buddies and we'd go in there all the time buying stuff. And I think I hadn't gone there for about 3 weeks, and then I went, and they used to be like closed on Mondays or something like that. And it wasn't a Monday. And I was like, it's closed. I wonder what's going on. And came back, the next week, and it was closed, and never saw it opened again. And it was kind of funny because it was one of these kind of storefronts where you really didn't know what the place was, right? I'm sure a lot of you out there who grew up in an urban area know what I'm talking about, where it's like, oh, okay, so there's a sign, it says this, and there's a window in that, but you don't see into it. So Omanal says that we are in a golden age of games, regardless of the craziness. Yes, I completely agree. This is a golden age of gaming. I don't think we have the greatest games. We've got some really fantastic games, don't get me wrong. But I think there is a glut. There is a real glut of games out there right now. And it's only going to get worse the more and more that we see all these outlets who have never had anything to do with covering tabletop games coming out with articles about tabletop games, which are, for the most part, useless. They're just trash. It's just clickbait. It's just, oh, please come to our outlet. Fortune Magazine talking about the best 2-player board games. Really? It's like, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to buy your opinion on, shit like that. And we're seeing a lot of that. But yes, I think at some point, just like the comic book industry in the 90s, we're going to get to an oversaturation, and we will see a bit more. And the funny thing is, the pandemic actually put that on hold, because the pandemic has been very, very good. It's a good for game companies. So it's kept some game companies afloat that probably wouldn't still be around. It's just my opinion. That's all. So Daniel says, great discussion. So much out there in games that make no sense. Well, everybody's got their own forte. I know people who love abstract games. I'm just not I'll play an abstract game, and don't get me wrong, but for the most part, if there isn't some kind of a story that I can wrap my head around as I play the game, and it doesn't have to be, a role-playing game. It doesn't have to be an adventure game. It's just like, as an example, like something like Fun Fair, where you're building an amusement park. Okay, so it's got a little bit of a story to it. You're building an amusement park, not I'm lining up different colored pieces here for some reason. Let's just don't jump out at me. Omanal points out they're still waiting for some Kickstarters from before 2020 that they backed. Yeah, I've, every once in a while I'll share some news about Kickstarters, because I run across stuff that I think is pretty cool and stuff that I really feel is going to eventually make it to the market. But I got to be honest, the vast majority of Kickstarter stuff that gets sent to me, I don't post. I don't share here on the show either. So Bane says, I see Jeff is not a fan of Connect 4. No, not really. I have played it, but it's just not. All righty. So on tomorrow's show, we are going to take a first look and page through Beowulf, Age of Heroes from Handiwork Games. So this is a 5e open game license release. It is for one-on-one role-playing. So one game master, one player. And it's pretty hefty. So we are going to take a first look at this. You may recall there is also a Kickstarter going on for a new Beowulf supplement as well. Talked about that. It was a couple of weeks back. I think it was the week before I went on hiatus, which was last week. So that'd be 2 weeks ago. So and I think it's still around. So we're going to check this out on tomorrow's live stream. So, hey, Bane actually points out they've been interested, I believe, they're talking about Beowulf, since I shared that news piece. So we are going to take a peek. We are going to take a look. Omenal also points out Shanghai is locked down. So it doesn't look like transport's going to untangle for a few more months. Yep. We shall see. I got my fingers crossed that, and I know it's not going to happen. I know by the time Gen Con runs around again, it's just going to all be, everybody's masked up again. And I was hoping we could possibly move past this. But you know what? And I know I'm going to go off on a real mini tangent here. You're never going to get a handle on this if people don't get vaccinated. People don't believe the science. They don't get vaccinated. We're never going to get a handle on this. So there is no herd immunity out there. If 35% of the population refuses to get vaccinated, mainly for political reasons. So yeah. You're ruining it for everybody else. All right, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Everybody who tuned in, watched live, thank you very much. Always appreciate that. Of course, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. Will not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube. Also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my upcoming review of Pathfinder Punks in a Powder Keg from Paizo Inc. Yes, it is the first chapter of the latest adventure path for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And I will tell you what I think. Of course, if you're taking part in chat during the live stream, you get extra experience points. You're all getting close to 3rd level, I'm telling you. Getting awfully close. I'm just dangling it. Here's that carrot. Hey, I should also point out, if you watch the stream regularly, you really should be giving the video a thumbs up. I believe there are quite a few people who regularly watch, and they do not give a thumbs up to the video. Remember, that is engagement. That helps share the video with other people. When you make a comment on a video on the Gaming Gang channel, that helps the engagement. That makes YouTube more likely to share the Gaming Gang videos with people in their suggested videos. If you don't give a thumbs up, if you don't comment on videos, I still, I stay one of the most popular websites that covers tabletop gaming that nobody knows about. All righty. Of course, I know a lot of you out there don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter how you watch, live, on Memorex, what have you. I really appreciate you take time out of your busy lives to sit and just check out any of the videos on the channel. Thank you very much. It is really appreciated. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it happens to be in your neck of the woods. I'll be back tomorrow. And of course, here's hoping each and every one of you always get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, by all means, subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel by clicking right here. Check out the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, or find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching.